This slideshow is a way to remember, with gratitude, all those church folks who over the years built, repaired, and maintained our building, equipment, and grounds. It should be interesting and great fun. I aim to have you on your way in an hour, so please settle back and enjoy. Who could have imagined that the building and budding hope of a new United Church in Sherwood Park, from my Sunday school's humble beginnings in a garage in 1957, we grew to serve nearly 400 children and youth in less than 2 decades. By the time we celebrated an average of 4 baptisms a month, nurtured 5 active choirs, and held 2 weekly services. Even with the addition of the education wing, our expanded building could scarcely contain us. Meanwhile, Sherwood Park itself was on the cusp of doubling in population within 10 years. To make space for this expanding community of faith, 2 dedicated committees worked tirelessly over 2 years, both to plan another building expansion and to explore the possibility of founding a second United Church, perhaps in the northern part of Sherwood Park. Now, we regret that most property folks from the earliest days are no longer with us. But we are lucky to start our trip off with Stan Kenny, who was there in the beginning.
This is a picture of the church service in Campbelltown School. It's, as you can see, it's pretty well attended for not having a building to worship in. Sunday school in Campbelltown School. And this is only one of the classes that were there. There were many classes of Sunday school students in the school. This is the beginning. The vacant lot you see here was, this is a sod turning ceremony for the original building, the original sanctuary. And as you can see, it was quite a while ago you can tell by the dress of the people, the hats especially. I don't know any of these people. I recognize some faces, but it's too long ago. My memory is very good, but the recall isn't very good. Reverend Mark Bedford, I believe, addressing the sod turning group. And here are some members of the church during the sod turning group ceremony in I think it's 1968. 1968. This is what the finished church looked like on the bare land lot that was acquired. And as you can see, it was a very outstanding building. Nothing else around it. Not a tree, and a precast concrete block sidewalk up to the front door. This is the interior of the new church, one of the first services conducted in the new church, and you can tell by there wasn't much furniture. Chairs were used. No, there were no pews, and the table at the front of the church was just a 4-legged metal table. With the compliments from Stony Plain United Church, we acquired new furniture for the lectern and the pulpit. Here's another shot of the church interior from above. This is the sod turning ceremony for what we call the annex. The committee who organized this was the main driver was Ken Wong, who was an instructor in building design at NAIT. And I have to say that Ken was assisted by several people, one of whom was Jack Verhoff. Jack Verhoff was a carpenter and superintendent for a large home construction company, and he was the driver behind the action. Ken Wong was the brains behind the whole issue, and the construction committee consisted of Ken Wong, Jack Verhoff. No, I can't remember. I was on that committee, and there was a plumber, Scotch plumber. This is a United Nations effort here, because Ken Wong was of Chinese descent, and Jack Verhoff was from Holland, Dutch descent. The plumber had a British accent. I think he came from Scotland, though. And there was myself, one of the little Canadian boys. So it was an interesting time. Jack Verhoff, very, very, very complimentary, or basic issues were no problem with Jack. But Ken was a very meticulous guy, and he had shown details of everything, all construction portions of the building. And there was many discussions between Ken Wong and Jack Verhoff. And Jack would say, "No, we don't do it that way." Ken would meticulously express his opinion and in detail, but the final result was it was a compromise in many cases. But the building was built. Here's a storage of some of the materials that were accumulated. And this is the construction. The roof deck is being put on by volunteers. There were hundreds of, I would say almost 50 or more volunteers that worked on this project. And it was I think the volunteer labor that went into it was probably 75 or 80% of the building. And it was a great issue, of cooperation amongst the parishioners. Gary Lafleur putting the final touches to the kitchen cupboards. And behind Gary, you will see a black blob. That's what it was when it arrived on the site. It's a 2-oven gas range that came out of a hotel uptown that was demolished. And it was the black blob, we called it, was sitting out in the parking lot when we arrived one day. And the ladies of the church, UCW, which stands for United Women's Church.
I have a question.
Yeah, whatever.
How did we ever get it in there?
Well, that was the job, because it wouldn't fit through the door. We had to take a part of the base off and turn it up on its side. And when we turned it up on its side, lo and behold, you should have seen the things that fell out of it. Everything but dead rats. Anyway, we finally got it in the building and got it working, and it took a long time to get it adjusted. Anyway, there was another feature when we got this gas stove. The gas stove occurred because we didn't have electrical capacity in the main service entrance to the other building to accommodate 2 electric ranges in this building. So we opted for a gas stove. And once we got the gas stove, of course, it had to be vented. And the ventilation, as you see, there was a vent on the back of the stove that you had to turn the fan on before you could get the gas on in the stove. But that hood was built in our shop, my company's shop, by the tinsmith who we hired many years ago, and he banged that out in about 3 hours, and we stuck it up there and put a fan on it. And it wasn't much. There wasn't many regulations that we were concerned about at that time. Okay.
Stan, now we call it the scary stove.
Oh yeah, here she is. She's the cleanup lady, Irene Bishop. Irene Bishop was doing the cleanup. Let me get my. This is the completed annex building, and as you see, Ken did a very good job of designing that thing to make it blend in with the existing church. And it wasn't a Taj Mahal, I can tell you that. It was pretty meager construction and meager, but it served the purpose, and we were able to accommodate scouts and guides and cubs and you name it, men's group, and all the Sunday school people in that building. I might say that in the old building, the Sunday school was down in the lower level, and it was a picnic or a disaster. I don't know how to describe it, but to separate the classes, there were curtains put up on wire in down there to divide the spaces. Well, we had many rugrats during that time at the Sunday school, and they would be crawling from one compartment to the other underneath the curtains to visit their friends. So it was the annex was certainly direly needed. This is the sod turning ceremony for the new sanctuary. I don't know much about this part of the property, but it was I think in 1982. I must express a personal opinion here, in that I didn't agree with building a new sanctuary at the time, because previously we had just retired the mortgage on the original building, and we had just built and financed the annex, and the congregation was pretty well stretched out financially. It was not a good time, and so I wasn't involved in the construction or the planning of it. All I know is that Bud and Gail, Jones. Bud and were heading up the finances for the property, and they were trying to raise $300,000 in a week, and there was a little bit too much pressure for me. So this is the construction, the beginning of the new building construction. Framing going up. The contractor and the architect and the contractor of this project did a very good job in blending it in and marrying it with the two existing buildings. It was quite a feat to perform for the money that was available, but it looks pretty good. It worked out very well. There's a committee. There's a committee of volunteers in property. There's Glenn Brown. If anybody remembers Glenn Brown, old pipeline character. And he's doing what he always did, cutting the grass. Oh yeah, it's Roy Campbell and Mark for cleaning up. That was during the construction. Or there we are. There's Simic. There's Peace. Norm Henderson, and making some higher decisions. Yeah, Arnie Adams making repairs to the annex kitchen. And that's the end of my presentation. It was a brief history of where we are now.
We still wonder, who could have imagined that our church, since just a tender shoot reaching for the sun, would grow into a great mother tree, its deep roots of service stretching across Sherwood Park and beyond. But even a strong tree weathers storms. By 1998, our congregation was struggling. Attendance declined, and rental income dropped sharply after we lost the daycare, a key tenant. Still, our roots held firm. With resilience and determination, we fundraised to install a new sound system and make other much-needed improvements, while a memorial request provided the means to purchase our current sign. I asked Larry to share reflections on the years from 1988 to 2015. But since he had been working away on property matters for 2 decades before that, don't be surprised if he adds in a story or two from those years as well.
And another decade after.
And another decade after, right. Thank you.
You know, from our first organization of the congregation, we've always had volunteers working for the care of our place of worship, even before we had our own facilities. So in the schools, we still had to have many volunteers to carry out the services and clean up and setting up of chairs, etc., etc. So this volunteer work involves every aspect of SPUC's functions in carrying out all the many duties by many different people. And we have had custodians. 1971, Mr. and Mrs. Mundy were hired as caretakers. 1974, Dick Bilger hired as caretaker custodian. And then Fred and Diane Aiken were hired, and I'm not sure what year that is, but Fred and Diane were there during the time that I was pretty well, most of the time I was on the committee. And in 2016, Ian was hired. So the caretakers, custodians, are generally hired to maintain the cleanliness and the general daily functioning of the church. And Fred and Diane, because they were there when I was involved, they were very instrumental in helping, repairing, fixing, replacing things when necessary. Now we also have the property committee, and these members generally work to repair, replace, renovate where possible, and coordinate work with contractors, repairmen when required. It's a very broad job description. And I joined the committee around, I don't know, I threw all my notes out. I got rid of all my papers, so I think it was around 2000, somewhere in there, when Al Tromby was the chair of the committee. And other members I remember were Jim Evers and Bill Hall. Over these years, a few years, members were leaving the committee. Then Gordon Rees joined, and we began to see photos of our work being done. And gradually the committee was blessed with the additions of Arnie Adam, Doug Gubbard, Dale Sawari, and later Lauren Nickel. Dale brought new skills and knowledge to the committee, and we were on a roll. Some projects the committee did or assisted contractors in, we had the electronic sign, and thanks to the Jim Rogers family, generosity of that family, the cell tower, roof reshingling, Memorial Hall, walls were repaired, and complete painting of the Memorial Hall, and renovations of the office space, which was done primarily by Gary Astle at that time, which was a great benefit for us, and leak-proofing skylights. So we got some slides now. Oh yeah, we're fixing some of the siding up on the front of the church. Spring cleanup. Yeah, that's. I gotta read my Lemke family. Yes, boiler renovations. Look at all the copper in that thing. My God. And. And Gordon built this candle holder, which people had been asking him for. And it's sort of a unique aspect that was. And we needed a place for audio visual. And so we had that built. And painting the railings up on the ramp. And Mary cleaning windows, but she had time to stop and pose. And we moved the sign to face both ways and had to repeat all the information on both sides. This was we were always putting ladders up on the church, trying to get up on the flat roof. So Gordon came up with this. He welded this together. We put this up to hold the ladder so it was safe to climb up on. And we got lunchtime there. Cleanup crew, we got Greg Blades, we got Doug and Gene Henderson, Brian Smith, Jim Dundas, and Dennis Pratt. Cell tower was completed in 2014, except for the fencing and stuff around it. Arnie moving the sign after we put up after the new electronic sign went up. The sign was moved to the back door. Spring planting by the Aikens. And the boys had put down all the bricks in the front, in the north entrance. It was Gordon, Arnie, Gordon, Doug, and Lauren. And of course the boys working hard at putting up the speakers for the organ, new organ. And the new organ arrived in 2015. We added some catwalks up in the sanctuary attic because if you if you were ever up there and you stepped off one of the beams, you would go right through the ceiling. And upgrading drywall to meet the fire code, Dale and Doug. Usually our day went fairly well. You know, sort of, we came and we did the work and then we went home. Except one day, Gordon and I had picked up 2x4s and we hauled them in with my trailer and my truck. We pulled up in front of the door. There was nobody around. And we hauled the boards in, and we thought that this would be probably 15, 20 minutes and we'd be gone. And but it took a little longer as usual. And we went out and my truck was gone. I'd left the keys in the truck, and there was a bike laying on the sidewalk there. Whoever stole my truck at least left us a bike. But anyway, Gordon and I searched around, couldn't find it anywhere around in the area. About 3 days later, got a call from RCMP in Camrose. They had found my truck. And so we went down to pick it up, and of course there was some damage to it. But talking to the constable, he said, well, when I was interviewing the guy, you know, and of course I asked him the standard question is, why did you steal the truck? And the guy says, well, I thought it was a gift from God. Anyway, I thought that the incident was probably my clue to move on. So I resigned from the committee shortly after.
Well, thank you so much, Larry. Oh, dear. Well, this time I'm going to put on my glasses. There we go. Well, by 2015, our twice expanded building was showing its age, tired and weathered from decades of faithful service to both our congregation and the wider community. Attendance and offerings continued to decline, yet it was at this very time that Dale Soiree and other property volunteers seized the opportunity to breathe new life into the old structure. With a series of thoughtful upgrades, they gave the building a much-needed facelift and made it more welcoming to those seeking a spiritual home. I asked Dale to share his reflections on the years from 2015 to the present. My apologies for not foreseeing a little overlap with Larry's 2015 slides about the Oregon project, though I suspect we'll be doubly enriched by hearing another take on that story.
I have to give a bit of background. We were involved, of course, in the fundraising for the organ, and as we came close to reaching our goal, we had a meeting at the church to talk about what the organ was going to look like. They selected a Johannes organ, and it was going to be the organ plus a subwoofer plus 8 other speakers. And so we're standing looking at the front of the sanctuary, and I'm thinking, 8 speakers. What will this look like with 8 dark objects up there? And I had this, and I mentioned this to Judy, I had this vision of the whole front of the church being entirely different with the speakers, and my image was of a whole bunch of vampire bats hanging down, ready to descend on the congregation. So I told her that I thought we should camouflage the speakers in some way so it didn't detract from the general appearance of the sanctuary, and she said, well, why don't you join the property committee? So I got kicked onto the property committee in 2015, and the first project was to install speakers. I did a plan for recessing the speakers into the front of the building, and we had the volunteers that Larry mentioned, of course, Gordon, Larry, and Brad Rogers, and Doug Garbett, and myself, and Arnie. And we, first of all, cut holes in the front. We didn't want to have the appearance of a construction site for all the Sundays that would come until we were done. So we cut openings in the front, and then I built some grill cloths in the garage, and we covered those with a fabric and put those up at the front to hide the construction site. And then we went on to, so that's what it looked like before the cavities were completed. We also then started to work on the back, so we needed to get scaffolding because it was a long ways up from the basement to above the stained glass, and so we had a guy come in and put in some scaffolding for us. And then we started working on the other side. This is the back side, the sanctuary side, where we cut the openings, and then we mounted this box on the back to make it deep enough for the speakers, and then drywalled them in. And so there's Brad and Doug. And at the same time, we decided that we would illuminate the stained glass. And so we put some lights on the bottom of the box shining down onto the stained glass to light it up. So there's the crew as we finished off this job. We also needed some protection for the subwoofer because the cone is exposed. And so we built this cover in my garage to sit over the top of the speakers so that if anybody happened to kick something, it wouldn't be something that would be damaged as far as the organ is concerned. So that was what the speaker looked like before, and this is what it looked like after we put the cover on it. And there's the gleeful participants in the use of the organ. And so it was a big deal when the organ showed up and everybody got a chance to try it out. And we had a wrap-up party afterwards in our backyard, of course, for everybody that participated in this. And then the next project we did was there were a lot of people who were into labyrinths at the time, and we received a bequest, and so we decided what we would do is we'd put in a permanent labyrinth in the front of the church, and so we had a crew recruited to do that as well. Brought in a whole bunch of patio blocks that we could use for that purpose, and dug a big hole in the front yard there, and then I don't know if you can see this not in this one, but anyway, some of the crew, Lauren and Gord and Arnie and Bob, Don Sterling, that were helping with us at that. And the payoff for everybody was popsicles. That's all they got for. And this is. I should also say that what I'm showing you is projects that were done by the volunteers, just like the annex was done by volunteers only. And so all of these projects were done without any contractors or anything required. This is what we used for cutting the blocks to make them fit. The patio as it was going together, compacting it. We put a wall in around the patio for seating. And this is what the labyrinth looks like, and you have to modify them for the size and the number of rings you got, and so we did a design that would work in this particular location. And there's the crew again, and I think Larry showed one of those shots. And this, we also put lighting underneath the seats around the patio, and then hooked them up to a timer so they came on in the evenings. So that was the finished labyrinth and the dedication. We also renovated Memorial Hall. We put in some storage for rental use, sprayed a whole bunch of baseboard in our garage for the entire Memorial Hall, and we also did the same thing for the Wong Wing, for the hallways and stuff when we tackled that later on. And so this is what the storage looked like when it was done. And then we did landscaping as well, and as part of the bequest that we got. So we bought some trees, took out a bunch of spruce trees that were overgrown, and this is what some of the new trees look like. We have some with different colors of deciduous trees that produce different colored leaves in the various seasons. So Russian olive and a maple tree there and so on. And the next project was the parking lot, and this is what it looked like before the parking lot was done. Lots of gravel over the top of the old stuff, and the crew coming in. So this is the only project that I have on this slide set where the property committee didn't do the whole thing. The grading and the paving, and the finished product before the lines, then the line painting. Putting in the barriers for the parking, and for the dumpster bins, we had 2 at the time to separate them keep them from encroaching into the other parking areas. So finished product after the lines are put in, and the celebration afterwards, we did the same thing. We had to get together all the people who participated, and with food, of course, and then later on, we received a check from the province for $30,000, which was the half of the cost of the parking lot that we didn't or weren't able to raise locally ourselves. And then I have some spring cleanup pictures here too. That's sort of an ongoing kind of a thing. And then we decided to do some landscaping in front of the annex, which we endearingly refer to on the property committee as the Wong Wing. And so we put in some sod and some other plants and things like this to give it some decor, and we finished off the stairs so that they didn't look like they were utility stairs anymore. And then on the other side, we put in a closet for the water hose, and did some additional landscaping over there as well. Then we started on the Wong Wing, and this is what the baseboards looked like in the Wong Wing when you decided to do our renovation. And we went through the entire lower level and put baseboards in, and Ian scraped off a quarter inch of wax from the tiles and stuff because they were so piled up with wax. And then we painted the hallways, and we put in new baseboards, and we painted the doors white so it brightened things up a lot down there. And then we added permanent lighting at the end so it didn't look like you were going down into a little dungeon when you went down those stairs. We also upgraded these stairs by covering them, leveling them out with Bondo, and then putting stair treads on them to make them a little easier to navigate. And that's what they looked like after we were done. And this is Doug doing some of the renovations where we changed lights to LED lighting and had to improvise our own scaffolding. So I'm destroying this picture after the slideshow so nobody knows what kind of risks we took. But we did put a protective barrier up for him, which was a piece of downspout. We painted the exterior of the building and the interior, and this is Reverend Kurt painting the office cupboards, and more painting. We cleaned up a lot of the utility rooms and marked off the areas where furniture was not allowed in front of the panels and things like that. We tackled this room next, which was a room that was full of storage for the preschool was using at the time, and took out some of the old cabinets and a sink that was not hooked up to the drain. It just went into the boiler room next door and down onto the floor and into the floor drain. And so, and here's some of the crew, Kurt and Arnie and Doug, painting up that particular room. And then we found some cabinets to put in at the restore. So we put new cabinets in to finish off the area and give us a counter space and things like that. And then one of the other projects was to remove this banner storage from the sacristy, and we put one on the wall that can be tilted out, and that holds all of our banners now against the wall. And if you have to pull them out, you can jack it out and prop it so that you can get at stuff easily. And then this is pictures of the green room build that we did back during COVID. So Lauren Arnie and I did some cleanup in there, and then we painted the wall and put up some soundproofing in the form of banners that weren't being used in the church. And that's what the green wall looked like. And then Kurt could superimpose photographs from the Holy Land, for example, behind him as he was making his presentations for us during COVID. And then Lauren and Arnie did a complete renovation on the uni stones that were in the narthex, because they were sagging along the edges as wood that supported them rotted away and stuff. And so they put some angle iron down, and then we re-leveled all of the stones and packed them down and stuff. And that's the finished product there. We also did some work on storage spaces, and this is a before picture and an after picture with everything sort of shelved away and made the floor accessible for. And then to meet Jack Verhoff's standards for improvements in the sanctuary, we had to do a duplicate of the memorial board at the back. So cut out some letters and put this up next to the other two, so we have 3 memorial boards at the back that match. And the last job on this particular series is we did railings at the front for safety. So this is before pictures, before we put railings in. We made the railings in my garage because at least we have the tools there that we could do this efficiently, and then moved them into the church. And then we hired a crew to come in, guy that I knew, to come in and spray paint them to match the rest of the Jack Verhoff woodwork. And so that's what they look like. And this picture could have been taken this morning, but this is the finished product, and it's being in use as it has been ever since. Okay, so that's my section of this, and of course I could say the same thing Larry did. It's not necessary, but the volunteers were always there. I'd come up with a plan for something that we could do, and offer this up to the committee, and all of a sudden we had all the people we needed to do the project. And so it's been a delightful period of 10 years for me, working with people who were so eager to tackle whatever it was that came up.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dale. You know, I love this image. It reminds me that life does spring eternal. And I'm confident that life will continue to spring eternal in our congregation as we transform into the future. It would be impossible to name everyone who has cared for our place of worship over the years, but let us pause to remember those who are no longer with us, like Ken Wan, and give thanks to the legacy of care they left behind, which we still enjoy today. And we thank people like Jim Dundas, who cared for our organ and pianos for 50 years. And yes, even this morning before choir, he was repairing this one here for us so we could play. And people like Judy Soiree and others who faithfully tend the plants in the narthex. Our many caretakers, especially Diane and Fred Aitken, who cleaned our church for 26 years. People like Arnie Adam, who serviced our lawnmowers for 26 years. And for all those who prepared food to sustain those who swung hammers. We especially appreciate all those who served on property committees over the decades, like Brian Finkbeiner, who helped the building committee more than 45 years ago and still serves faithfully today. Today's event has been offered to you by many loving hands. Thank you to Dulcie Berry and all those who prepared the wonderful lunch, and to Nick Kotick, Nick Kotick for recording a copy for those unable to be here, to Gina Blank for sharing her lovely pictures of trees, and to Lauren Nickel and Ian Castillo for setting up the tables and chairs. And thanks in advance to those who are staying behind to clean up. Stuart Jackson, what would we do without you? Thank you for offering. Thank you for offering to prepare this slideshow. And special gratitude to Stan, Larry, and Dale for their countless hours that you spent selecting and organizing images and preparing your comments. And thanks to your helpers, I'm aware of Gordon Rees and Sherry Ash. And thanks also to you four who have given us a really special gift today. Thank you.
Gail, I have just one thing I'd like to add. One of the things that was not mentioned that made a big difference in the appearance of the church is Judy's recruitment of artwork that the property committee helped her to put up throughout the church, above the window over here, the entire narthex, and so on. So there's something like 70 or more pieces of art that she procured that we hung in various places throughout the church. And
thank you. Thank you. And finally, I want to thank all of you for appreciating those who step up to help, each in their own way and time. This is a sacred place because it holds your beautiful spirits. This concludes the event celebrating the history of care for our place of worship. May we go now in peace with gratitude.